Hey, what's up? Liron here. Today I want to talk to you about the idea of resolution when painting. Let me show you an example. So here's what we're gonna paint today. Now you may have encountered this situation where you look at a scene and you're very confused, you don't know how to approach it, what to simplify, what to keep in, what to leave out, and for that, this exercise is perfect. It basically entails drawing a lower resolution and then higher resolution and practicing painting different resolutions. A low level, a medium level, a high level. With every increase in resolution, you add a bit more details. First, you focus on just a couple of simple shapes, then within those shapes you add more details. And this is actually, I got the idea based on a demonstration I did for a student. So you see here, I did this very quick and rough portrait, but then I showed him how you can do an even lower resolution, okay? So you have a very low resolution and a medium resolution. Then you can go into more details with the medium resolution, increase it more and more. But in order to do this, you have to be able to do that. You have to see the main shape, see what's really important, and then divide it into smaller details, okay? I hope that makes sense. Let's take it to the table and get started. So we'll get started with the lowest resolution. I don't even have to tape anything to paper here. And I'm just gonna create a frame because the scene needs a frame. So if you go for a lower resolution, what I want you to do is basically think of like 2 to 4 shapes, and that's all you're allowed, so to speak, to include in the scene. So here is my square, kind of, and if we can only put in 4 shapes or something like that, so we're gonna have the horizon line, and then we're gonna have the monastery. That's another shape, and it kind of goes like, and again, it's one shape. That's the main thing here. That's the shape of the structure. I'm not even gonna bother with the people in this case. And then we have a bit of the background and the horizon. That's all I'm gonna put in here. There's a bit of that kind of a thing going. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of a thing. That's how you want to think about these more lower, let's say, resolution types of scenes. And let me show you how it's done. I'm gonna try, you know what, let's try and do this alla prima. I may mess it up, but I do want to go over this one rather quickly. So it doesn't mean you have to do it in one go, but I'm just gonna show you a way of doing it really quickly. So I'm just blocking in the sky. And again, this is just about shapes. That's how you make this nice differentiation in resolutions, okay? So we can paint the exact same thing several times. It's actually a really good exercise in not overworking a piece, okay? Now this can merge right into the water here, like that, so that saves us some time and energy. Then we'll go into the actual structure itself. It's very purpley in nature in this kind of reference, or even gray, so I'm just going to use all of my primary colors to render it. Let's go with a bit more of the red and a bit more of the yellow to neutralize. I think this will work nicely. And I'm just placing it in. Okay, it's obviously going to blend with the surrounding. I'm fine with that. It's just a low resolution rendition or rendering of the thing. It's just one big shape. And when people paint against the light, that's the kind of quality the painting gets, okay? I don't care about the gaps here. They're not supposed to be here, but it's just for, you know, for the example's sake. But generally speaking, yeah, that's how it works. That's how you get this very against the light simplified look, just by using a one shape. Okay, this can remind you perhaps of the video I did on the different compositions and the ways of cutting a scene, but the result was similar, but the idea is different. Here it's just different resolutions, and with that as the first very low resolution attempt, this should be flatter, we'll go into the higher resolution attempt in the next one. So this is the low resolution, okay? Again, simple shapes, just 1, 2, 3, 4 perhaps. Now let me show you what I mean when I say the higher resolution. So I skipped some of the drawing stage to really keep this simple, but you can pause the video and just do what I do here. It's still a simplified shape, but when you paint higher resolution, what you want to do is actually look within each shape. So within this large shape, we have all sorts of different intricacies in the outline, and also within it we have all these places where the walls catch the light, and so you can see a very interesting and high contrast. Okay, so that's the kind of thing you want to pay attention to. You want to get the details in within every shape. Another detail is the fence here that I put. This little small building that catches the light in the background. Okay, and here's the background mountain ridge, or just a ridge of whatever kind. So you want to dive deeper within every shape. Now, with every increase in resolution, you'll zoom in more, and you will get not just these small details, but more elaborate details. So you'll actually get the different structures within, and that will make the shapes even more complex. Okay, so with each iteration you go more and more zoomed in. Now we're going to do just two in this one again, but had I wanted to take this to a higher level, I'd actually do what I many times do, what you see in fact in most of my processes, is I actually sketch every shape I see. So you see this tower at the topmost part, I'm getting all the shapes I see in it, including the windows and the rooftops and this spire, what do you call it, I'm not sure, and all of these. We're not going that high resolution, and we're not going that low resolution, so we're going somewhere in the middle, but it's still higher resolution. So let's jump into that. Now this will require us to have a bit more thought and planning when it comes to the process. I will have to cover it up with an initial wash, so let's get started on that, because I do want to, again, keep it more organized, have a bit of a better way of showing the different highlights that I'm going to preserve. It just requires a bit more thought. So let me just gradually bring in some warmth into the mix. I'm going to keep this one fairly simple too. But then as we get to the building, I'm going to incrementally add a bit more and more of the yellow. Okay, so a bit of even cleaner, pure yellow on the structure itself. Then as we get to the sides, I'm gonna put in a bit more of the other colors and warm it up finally next to the bottom. And hopefully that makes sense for first wash. We're gonna allow this just a couple of seconds to dry. And in fact, if you want to lighten it up, you just grab a bit of water with the brush and you just pour it and you tilt it a bit, and you'll get a bit of a lighter result. Maybe for some of the highlights here you need a lighter value, so I wanted to do that. And this will also bring down the yellow so that it will reflect, quote unquote, on some of the water here, okay? But now let's let it dry and then continue. So now everything is dry and we can start rendering the details, okay? This is where this stage differs greatly from the previous one. Now the shadowy side is quite dark, darker than it seems. However, I don't want to go too dark, so we'll have to find a nice little mix there. So I'm getting started top to bottom. This is again where this really differs. Let me zoom in a bit. So this is again where it really differs from the previous one, because here we're actually rendering the details within the shapes. So we got this tower at the top, has a window, has a highlight or two. Then around it, there are some surrounding rooftops. And what's important is keeping those highlights that you see here and there, making sure you don't miss them, and trying to get them to make sense and read as probably rooftops and towers for the most part. Lots of different mini structures here. And actually, let's warm it up a bit. I don't know, I feel like this needs some warming up. Now, it may look too dark, but as you know, it will dry lighter. But another thing is, once you spread out the paint, it actually gets a little lighter too. So that's another thing to pay attention to. And the larger you work, the slower you work, the higher the resolution is. Okay, that's the whole idea here. Here's another structure, a couple of others. Now around the middle, it's basically just a flat, darker value. So not much going on, but here and there you do have the odd highlight, you know, a wall that catches some light here and there. A window perhaps, you know, just trying to get this to look like a bunch of buildings basically stuck together. I really like the shape of this thing, and someone asked in the comments for me to to show it, and I decided it's a pretty good idea. So this is why we're here. Again, a couple of walls here that catch the light, bit of a line here perhaps, the edge of the structure itself. Hopefully that makes sense and kind of reads as the thing it should read as. And it's one of those things that you don't really know. Again, you have to trust yourself and just keep going, even if it doesn't still look like the thing you want. Because for me now, I'm looking at it, I'm like, I don't know about all of the different shapes I put in. But I have trained myself and learned so far that it's really important to delay that worry and just to think about painting and rendering the shapes you see, because so many times you'll be surprised at how well it does connect, and you only see it the next day, and then it's a shame to give up on something that actually works, but you just don't see it at the moment. So now I'm going to mix a bit of a rather neutral green, because I do want to connect this wall to the green up front, because it is connected. So a bit of green here. There's this little structure. I'm going to add that in just a moment, but this gets a little yellower as it moves towards us, like that. Still keeping it fairly simple, because don't forget I'm painting really small. But I am adding much more details than the previous example, obviously. Now, if you want to have a reflection in the water, you don't really see it here, but let's add it. I think it will make more sense. You just mimic what you see up top around the bottom. So there's a highlight here, another highlight there, another highlight for this structure, and there we go. We got the reflection in. If you want to make it clear where the reflection starts, you just add a bit of a darker line around the bottom of the shore. That'll make the separation between the top and the bottom. Hopefully that makes sense. Now we're gonna add the background. It's fairly light, neutralized, and the nice thing about getting a neutral gray is you just use everything you have on the palette. So sorry that it's super zoomed in, but you just use this blue section, red section, a bit of yellow, mix it all together. You get a nice gray. And let's just plop that in and make sure we paint around this structure like so, and I think that'll work out nicely. And here as well, just for a background, this could be really nice to make the walls shine a little more by adding this blue sort of background, making this area pop. So this is basically it. I could add the fence. In fact, let me add the farther part of the fence now. The reason for that is that it will get a little blurry because it's still wet, and this is good. It will just move into the distance that way. You see kind of a fence, a very messy one, but hopefully that gets the point across. There are two people here, but you know, I didn't even plan on getting them in, so I don't know. Let's just put something here at the front. Very suggestive, and we even got this nice little effect as if there's fog coming out, which I really love. And of course the fence has some highlights on it that we can add with a white pen as soon as it dries. In fact, let's let it dry and then come back, add this, and conclude. So once again, this is dry, and we can just add a couple of indications for where the light catches the fence. In fact, I'll keep these to a minimum. I won't even touch the farther ones because I don't want to bring too much or call too much attention to that section. And as it, we have a fence. You could add just a couple of highlights on the people if you want to, but you know, it's not really, that's not the goal here. So the goal, and let me zoom out, is to learn what the concept of resolution means. So here is lower resolution. It's just limited to a number of shapes you can count basically with 2, 3, 4 fingers. That's it. Now, as you dive deeper, you go higher res, you start adding more details within those shapes. And as you go deeper, you actually draw the smaller individual shapes. So the reason this is so important, once again, is this is how, if you can do this, then you can learn how to focus on what matters in the scene. Because many beginners have this issue of they try to get too many of the details in the beginning because they don't know how to tackle the overall thing. But your ability to place this here and not in the dead center, place the horizon line in an interesting way, read the overall values of the scene, this ability is what's important in being able to ultimately do this and this. Okay, you have to be able to take a more zoomed out look, and then once you have that in, you can move on to these details, even within this detailed of a drawing, or even more detailed. First, you kind of focus on the larger shapes. Then you go into this. This is why this is so important. Let me show you another thing. So here's a demo I did for a student, just a quick one. I showed it to you, I think, in the introduction of this video. I showed you this, how I did this, I showed him. And then I said, but you can go even lower resolution. Just go like this. Here's a face. That's a face. Here's the cigarette or whatever that is. Here's the eyebrow, the hair, it's all here. This is the same. Okay, this is the lower resolution, then this is higher resolution. Then you can go even higher resolution than this and get all the smaller shapes. More shapes and more accurately, okay? You have to be able to do this kind of a thing. Lower resolution, higher resolution. Lower here, higher, and even higher, okay? So I hope this makes you understand the importance of this exercise. Now let's wrap it up. So hopefully seeing me actually paint these helps to clarify the idea. This is not a simple concept. It's one you have to kind of contend with and play around with and struggle with a bit until you get it. But once you're able to, you'll see a whole new world of possibilities opens up. You start enjoying these lower resolution paintings, and you start trying to compete with yourself and see how simplified you can go while still maintaining the atmosphere and the mood of the scene and the overall composition of it. And that's without even mentioning the benefits of being able to go more detailed, because you know what the gist of the scene is, okay? This is incredibly important, and I urge anyone to try it out. Instead, especially if you're addicted to trying to draw every small detail in, try and challenge yourself to just see the like 3-4 main shapes, and that's it. That's all you're allowed to paint, and then you can dive deeper in and develop it. Okay, so here's again the one I showed you earlier. I hope this makes sense. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to drop a like if you have. That really tells YouTube that you enjoyed it. And also, if you still aren't subscribed, I have tons of videos just like this one. I'm really grateful for having you here on my channel, and I will see you again in the next vid real soon.